Tom Kelly is a County Clare village postman, but he's also a shareholder in a big tourist development in the southwest. Eoin Maloney is a small farmer and a shareholder. Tom Maloney, a shopkeeper, holds shares in the same company. Jimmy Danny Maloney, village publican, another shareholder. Tommy Marsh, village blacksmith, and a shareholder. All these men of a quiet backwater village have their money sunk in a contributing but violently contrasting world. Some of these tourists, Americans and European, have been lured here by people like Tom Kelly, Jimmy Danny Maloney, and their tourist development. These Aunt Mames and Uncle Heinrichs have come to briefly dip themselves in a way of life now lost to them, the traditional life, complete with thatched cottage. And Jimmy, Tom, and the others are selling it to them in the village of Broadford, 12 miles from Limerick City. These 6 cottages are part of an Irish cottage project operating all over the Midwest region by a company originally set up by the Shannon Free Airport Development Company. There are 100 cottages altogether, and these 6 cost £36,000, £6,000 of which came from investment by the local people. It came from under the beds and out of the cocoa tins. And it's not just one hotel or 2 cash registers which will see the return, but the whole community. Mr. Patrick Monaghan of Rent an Irish Cottage Limited.
Well, basically we were trying in those villages where we have built cottages to foster a spirit of public enterprise, to harness private capital with public capital to bring the benefits of tourism to these villages and to create a new tourist product which would be new in the sense of its uniqueness and in the sense that it's different. That basically were our motives. In the implementation of the scheme, we had 2 major objectives. First of all, the scheme would be a social success, and secondly, it would also be commercially viable.
But how does it achieve this local involvement?
Well, it achieves the involvement of the local community insofar as that it's their scheme, and they do much of the work. The official agencies involved in this region assist them with their technical expertise and their professionalism, but basically it's their scheme. They meet at committee level. They have their chairman, who is elected onto the board of this company, because there is a company, Rent an Irish Cottage Limited, which manage, operate and market the cottages we're talking about in the Midwest region.
This is the thing, how can you marry this local involvement with an outside business management?
Marry the 2 of them simply by a public limited liability company was formed in May 1969 with a board of directors comprising of the representatives of the official agencies and representatives from the communities in Clare, Limerick and North Tipperary, comprising one board with the objective of building 100 cottages, marketing them internationally, and consequently deriving the financial benefits as well as the social benefits accruing from the implementation of the scheme.
Well, the locals too, as you say, did put up their money. Now, is this supposed to be their sacrifice for the locality, or is it on a business footing? Are there profits? Will there be dividends?
Yes. While the scheme is aimed to improve the social, economic and cultural fabric of the villages and consequently of the region, it is also aimed to be a commercial, financial, viable success. And we hope that with our 100 cottages going and with the occupancy rates so high at the moment, that the company, standing in its own legal entity, will be able to pay a dividend in the next 2 years to the shareholders. I would like to say that over 50% of the share capital of this company is owned by the local people, by the public sector. and the official agencies that are involved are only minority shareholders. So in effect, the company is owned by the people.
Well, you say the reasons for the development are largely social, but some areas have been turned down for this development. Now, why would that happen?
Well, we don't turn places down because we regard fundamentally that every village in Ireland is capable of being a marketing success as far as selling the idea of the cottage scheme, because people come, let's face it, not basically to the seaside or to the lakeland or to the rolling hillside. They come to see Ireland and they come to meet Irish people. So consequently, any village would be eligible for the scheme. But let's face it, there are villages which are in a more geographically, they have a geographical scenic advantage that other villages have not.
Well, let's take Broadford, for example. Now, that's inland. It's certainly quiet, and yet it was picked.
Well, Broadford, first of all, I would like to say about Broadford, seeing that you mentioned it, it is a dynamic committee, a dynamic curate, a very cooperative people. Its adjacency to Shannon Airport and to Limerick City, it's scenic in its own right, it's central, and above all else, the cooperation initiative of these people in Broadford, led by their curate, provoked and prompted us to implement a scheme there.
And that curate is Father Pat Sexton. But just how big was the job he took on? What sort of condition was Broadford in? And were the people themselves even willing to do anything about it?
This community, Michael, like most rural communities, small in number, a lot of people had left and immigrated to Britain and to the States. In fact, our present population here, we've got roughly over 200 homes in the parish and about 824 people. Now, this differs very much from the situation here in the year 1831, when we then had 7,700 people. We had 10 schools in the parish, whereas today we have 2.
In a village in which nothing has changed except to age and decline, the coming of the cottages and their tourists has had an extraordinary effect in only 6 months. A supermarket is being built. 3 pubs are being extended. 1 local man has gone into bicycle hire, another into pony trekking. A car repair service has grown up. The local Glenomra River is being cleaned and a park laid out. And if you don't want to drive to Limerick, local farmhouses will serve dinner.
This scheme, it's only, first of all, it's quite new. Our first cottages were opened here on the 5th of April, just 4 months back.
Well, how did you land the project for this area? Because other places have been turned down, haven't they?
We pulled it off, I think, for the simple reason that we wanted this thing to happen, and we were prepared to do our part to make sure it did happen. By our part, I mean providing a site, the one we're on. Secondly, and very importantly, being prepared to put up the necessary share capital. In our case, close to £6,000.
But how did you get the local people to land out £6,000? Were they not sceptical about the project?
I would say the local people, by the time we got round to thinking of the cottage scheme, were very enthusiastic about anything that might improve their lot, economically, socially, psychologically. They already had, if you like, the advantage of seeing this scheme in operation in Ballyvaughan. And this, of course, was a tremendous help to them. It was a visual aid, if you like, that was successful. And there wasn't any trouble at all. In fact, the shareholding it's made up here, as I said, almost 6,000. That shareholding, interestingly enough, is we have 225 shareholders. As I said, we've slightly over 200 homes in the parish, which means that practically every home has a shareholding in this particular cottage site. In addition, I think, which is a very important thing, our youngsters in school, the children in primary school, they have contributed, 90 of them, approximately £175. This has been done, of course, through the encouragement of their parents and their teachers. And I think this is desperately important because it gives them a real interest and a real stake in the development of their own area.
Well, in terms of influence over the life in the village, what has this kind of project got over, say, a small factory as a development?
This particular thing, cottage scheme, it involves with people, particularly new people. I think a lot of rural areas, they tend to be inward looking and introspective. And people shouldn't be blamed for this sort of thing. Okay, they are often isolated. We are situated here close enough to Limerick and Shannon in the sense we're only half an hour's drive away. But yet, in here among the hills, we could, I think, tend to become an introspective community. And in these days, you know, when we're talking of EEC and the rest of it, I think introspection is not a virtue to be encouraged in rural areas.
Well, if this does generate a new attitude and an enthusiasm amongst the people, how are you going to use this? How is it going to be channeled?
Here, I think, I mentioned the fact that we were so near Limerick and Shannon. I could see this developing in this way, that here we would have a sort of dormitory area, a place for, first of all, our own young people, working as they are in Shannon and Limerick and Scariff, would continue to work there, would live here, and give their resources and their strength and their abilities towards building up this own community. And this is going to mean more houses, more people, more shops, possibly a factory in time, though I would tend to see our future development along things like angling and shooting and tourist development rather than industrial.
It all began here in Ballyvaughan, where a pilot scheme was set up over a year ago to test the viability of the cottage project. Here they'll tell you that Ballyvaughan had no future. It did make some small earnings out of visitors to the Burren, but for the most part, the young who had any ambition at all went abroad. However, the cottage scheme proved itself, and the young are coming back to provide for the market which has been created. And the market is made up of Filipinos, Britons, Americans and Germans coming here because it's underdeveloped and quiet.
We want a quiet nature. We want not very less comfortable, not bad comfortable. We want a high standard as we have at home, but we like the people here. We know they are very friendly, and for our boys we need lake, and we need the fishing, we need little sport in the open air, which is much better than ours at home.
And you know something, you got beautiful air. The milk, I haven't had any milk in the last 2 years at home, but it's just outstanding here. It tastes
good. We live in Oxford, which is not terribly busy, you know, but nevertheless I think it's the push. It's the feeling that you don't have to do anything, to meet any schedules, you know.
You have to come here to, you know, sort of get away from it all, really, and for a rest. And I'm studying for my A-level, so I think, you know, oh great, at least sort of 2 weeks of rest.
Well, do you feel that you'd come back again, or is this?
Oh,
is
we
this
definitely
no
will.
way?
Well, if things will stay like they are, yes.
Oh yes.
You know, it's a pity. You know, I was watching in Galway City how they catch the salmon as they go up the lakes with the nets. So probably in 4 or 5 years, if you have no salmon left, there's going to be lesser people coming over here. See, even if I won't catch one, but if there is a chance, you know, you go after one. Angling is getting pretty big in Germany now too. And I think that's your best advertising.
Well, just look at the bay out there. On a clear day, you can see Connemara. You know, the very, very, you know, you wonder sometimes what lies beyond those mountains there. And you can see Galway and listen to that. The seagulls. There's nothing else, normally, nothing else, only that.
You have to do something. You know, you just can't sit there and do nothing. So you go fishing. It's the same. You know, it keeps you busy. Live off the cream of the land, you know.
This comes to well.
Come, Michel, up. There's plenty of fish around here.
It has been said of this project that it's stage Irish, but if it is, it's a stage many of the Irish wouldn't mind being at. There are no pigs in these parlours. But if you go further than the half door and the open fire, you'll see the all-electric kitchen and feel the central heating. Here they're selling the tradition without the trouble, and the sales sheets show there are any number of buyers. In Ballyvaughan and Broadford, Corrafin and Carrigaholt, they were given a good business idea. The locals put up their share of the money, and the project worked. They broke the spell. They broke the expectation of decline. They did succeed, and it's leading to further success. There must be many a village could learn from them.